Greetings, my friends. It's Buck WSR Weezer, and I'm helping you put the do in the do-it-yourself. And today we're going to change out the starter motor on the 2000 Oldsmobile Silhouette minivan. This is just like the it's got the 3.4 liter engine, just like the Chevy Venture, Pontiac Montana, and this engine's in a lot of GM cars, Grand Am, Alero, Buick Rendezvous. So this might help you even if you don't have a Oldsmobile Silhouette. It's the starter's just barely got the strength to start it. It's gotten real weak all of a sudden. My wife was stranded today. I went to get her. We lucked out because it did start when I got there, but really weakly. Now I want to make sure first of all that it's not a weak battery. I know that it's not, so let's just go ahead and see if we can take a reading on the battery. And not sure if you can see it. Alright, hard to do while holding the camera. Can you see that screen? 12.77 volts. That's a fully charged battery. So that's not what we're dealing with here. It's not a battery. It's not a battery issue, it's just that the starter's getting weak. Now there's one thing I wanted to point out, because I'm going to do this while we're down here changing out the starter. I'm sure you'll even be able to see this. Alright, there's a starter. There's a starter motor right there. And that actually looks pretty clean. Right up above the starter motor is the oil pressure switch. It screws into the engine block, and that thing often leaks. Leaking oil onto the starter motor and compromising its longevity. I've replaced this about 3 years and 3 months ago. I replaced this starter. It actually looks pretty clean from below. I can see up higher that it is pretty dirty. So since that thing leaks and it's right above the starter motor, I'm going to change that out too. I do not have the new motor. I've ordered it. It should arrive tomorrow. So I'm going to work on taking the old one down as our first step. Our first step will be up top. I'm going to disconnect the positive cable from the battery. We need to disconnect the battery. So let's climb back up here. And that is going to be a matter of undoing that post there. It's probably like an 8mm small socket will do it, but you gotta disconnect the battery for this job. Okay, so we're under the vehicle now, and this is where the bulk of the work has to happen. We need to remove this plastic, I guess it's like a dust cover. There's one bolt right here. It looks to be about a 10mm. I think that's all we need to have, and then we'll be able to pop this guy right off. It's really just a dust cover. I don't know if there's any screws up top, but it's just one right here. Then we're going to have to, and it's really going to be tough to see, but above the starter motor is the solenoid where the wires, we have to undo the nuts that hold those wires down. And there's the big thick wire coming from the battery, and then there's a thinner gauge wire that comes from the key switch. So you just be careful about what you're looking at, and remember what comes off so you can put it back in the correct place on the new one. And I have to put the camera down to do this work, but those are the two steps that I'm going to take. Remove the dust cover, disconnect the wires, then I'll be right back. Okay, remove the wires from the solenoid above the motor, and I removed this dust cover. So the next step is really to remove the starter. There's one 15mm bolt here, and another one up there a little higher, which is probably harder to see. And with that, the starter should come down, and that's really all it is to removing it. So you need a 15mm socket, and an extension to get it up in there and take it down. I just can't do it while holding the camera. So once again, I'm showing you the step, and then I'll put the camera down and do it. And then I'll come back and talk to you again at the next step. Okay, so here's the starter. We pulled it out with just the 2 bolts that hold it in. Uno, dos. And you can see how much dirt and crud's on top of it. But I don't see a whole lot of evidence of oil leakage up there, but I'm going to change out that that oil pressure sensor anyway. So there was actually 4 wires under this main terminal on the solenoid, and just the 1 purple wire to the smaller terminal there on the end. So looking up here, if you can see, so there's the wires, and really all 4 of those big ones at the top go under the main terminal, and then down here I tucked the I tucked this purple one that goes to from the key switch to that smaller terminal. Now you can see up there, I think right there, that guy, he's our oil pressure sensor. He doesn't look bad, he doesn't look covered with oil. Sometimes these leak, and they don't leak from the threads, they leak internally and come out at the wires, at the wiring harness. I'm not sure I even need to mess with that because it is completely dry. So I don't think that it is the oil spilling on my starter that compromised it. I just think it's just not holding up. 3 years is all I got out of it. Alright, so we're going to put the new one up as soon as it gets here. It'll be the reverse of what we did here, and we'll be back in business. Okay, well, it's time to install the new starter, and I've got to tell you, sometimes these do-it-yourself projects get unnecessarily complicated, and you won't believe why. First of all, the starter that I ordered yesterday, thinking I was getting overnight delivery, actually is not scheduled to arrive for another 5 days. And it's not like I can leave my wife's car sitting here in the driveway while we wait 5 days for a starter to arrive. So I had to go out to a local store and pick up this guy. When the other one does arrive, I'll have to take it, I'll have to return it to recoup my money. So I bought 2 starters so far. Not the end of the world, but a little bit frustrating. And then would you believe that yesterday when we took down the old starter, you remember there were 2 bolts? Guess what? I lost one of them. Yes, lost. How do you lose a bolt? I could not find it anywhere. I had to go out to a hardware store and find a replacement. So the crazy stuff you have to do, that just feels stupid. But whatever. And the third complication is, it's all nice and wet under here because it rained, and may rain again before we're through. I hear thunder in the background. Well, that's just the way it goes, I guess, but we're going to persevere. That's the name of this do-it-yourself game. So let's get this new starter hung up in place. Alright, so we are putting it back up again. This guy over here, again, a little challenging, the one-hand approach while holding the camera can be a bit tricky. Another thing I didn't mention, but I will now, I haven't made the wire connections at the top, but I always like to take a little piece of sandpaper and sand down the wire terminals up there just to make sure that they're clean and that we're going to make good contact. Alright, I'm going to use 2 hands to tighten those down, and then we'll make the wire connections up here at the solenoid and be done. Well, the new starter's in place, wires are hooked up. All I got to do is go up top and reconnect the battery. I went ahead and changed the oil and filter while I was here, since I got it up on ramps. That's always a good thing to do. But I think we're about ready to call this wrapped up and fire it up. Battery's hooked up again. Remember, when you connect your battery again, you'll have to reset your clock on the radio and your memorized stations. It'll reset your ECM too, and your check engine light will be off until such a time as it runs its course, runs its battery test again. Alright, so I've got the beautiful wife in the driver's seat. Let's see if it'll fire up. There we go. And everybody's happy. Hey, can you turn it off and try it again? Just for fun, to hear the sound of that brand new starter. Go ahead. All right. Well, it's a DIY success project. I want to thank you for watching. Feel free to leave your comments or questions. Buck WSR Weezer, helping you put the do in the do-it-yourself. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.